All right, hey, it's Scott Penfold. This is the Loaded Radio podcast, and man, I am hyped about this one this week. You know, I've been working in this business for over 20 years now. I've never had the chance to actually talk to this guy, and it's a guy I wanted to talk to for pretty much that entire time, and that would be David Ellefson. Now, David Ellefson, obviously well known for being the bass player in Megadeth. He was with the band from their inception in 1983 through to 2002. Then the group had a brief breakup there. Ellefson returning in 2010 and staying with the group for his second tenure until May of 2021, where he was let go once again from the band after that online incident. But that's not keeping David down, man. No, he's got a few bands he's working with now, and one that we're going to be talking about today in particularly is the band Dieth, which is the new band featuring Ellefson, as well as Swedish guitarist vocalist Guilherme Miranda, formerly of Entombed AD, and drummer Mikael Zeshko, formerly of Decapitated. And they've got their new album, To Hell and Back, which is available now via Napalm Records. It's a bit of a departure from what you may know when it comes to David Ellefson. This is extreme metal, it's death metal. There's elements of thrash in there, some metalcore, but it's hard, it's heavy. It also features Ellefson's first foray into pulling off lead vocals with the track Walk With Me Forever. He does a great job of it as well, so definitely be talking about that with him too. Now, the album was produced by the band, and it was done in Poland. And these guys have actually been around a little while. They dropped their first track, their debut single, In the Hall of the Hanging Serpents, in mid-2022. And on top of that, David Ellefson as well, being involved with bands like Kings of Thrash, along with fellow ex-Megadeth guitarist Jeff Young, which is a band that is pretty much what the name states, as those guys are gaining some serious traction right now with what they're doing in a live sense. And as well, David involved with another band called The Lucid, which is a hard rock group made up of guitarist Drew Fortier, ex-Bang Tango, drummer Mike Heller from Malignancy, Raven, and Fear Factory, and vocalist Vinny Dombrowski from the band Sponge. So Dave's a busy guy, but we're going to be talking about Dieth in particular today. But with a history like Ellefson's, of course, we're going to be talking about that other band as well that we know as Megadeth. Now, if you're listening to this podcast via YouTube, don't forget to give this video a like, give it a thumbs up, and subscribe to the channel. But of course, if you're listening via Spotify, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, or anywhere else for that matter, just sit back and listen. So here we go, man. Without further ado, joining us now live on the podcast, the one and only David Ellefson. Dave, how are you, man?
Hey there, Scott. How are you?
I want to talk about Dieth with you, man. I mean, I got to say, from the tracks I've heard, really cool, really brutal. How did Dieth come together for you?
You know, Guilherme and Mihal knew each other over in Europe. And of course, their bands Entombed and Decapitated were, you know, pretty close cousins in a death metal genre. And, sure. You know, around the same area there between Sweden and Poland and stuff. So they knew each other. I don't think they'd ever done any music together, but Guilherme wanted to reboot and get started on a new venture. So he had contacted Mihal to play drums on it. And a mutual friend of ours, Christian Lawrence, who plays drums in the group Dead by Wednesday out of Connecticut, he's the one who introduced me and Guilherme on email back in early 2022. And yeah. As I tend to do, I say yes, and I say, sure, send me the song and let me hear it. And if I like it, I'll record it. And I did. And we, you know, once we heard it back, we're like, whoa, this is pretty cool. So I went to Europe. We shot the video and put it up, you know, on my Facebook last year in July. And yeah, sort of shocked the world with like, holy cow, we didn't see this coming. This is awesome, you know, and had some real punch and impact, you know. So that's really where it started. And then Napalm Records came to the table with the deal. And so we spent the rest of the year getting the record done and shooting videos and stuff. So, I mean, honestly, you know, within 1 year, I mean, literally January to December, we recorded the record, shot the videos, and turned the whole thing in. So it's been a project of passion for sure.
Now, have you always had an interest in extreme metal?
Well, it's funny, you know, when we started Megadeth, we were about as extreme as it got, you know. Right. I mean, Blackie Lawless was doing his thing, and that was pretty extreme, obviously, you know, and he was finding his path, and Motley Crue were doing their thing, and that was pretty extreme for hard rock as we knew it, you know, kind of coming off the heels of, say, Van Halen in LA, you know.
Sure.
But then, you know, I meet Dave, and, you know, those first songs that we wrote were a lot slower, you know, Skull Beneath the Skin and Devil's Island and these things. When we first wrote them, they were a lot slower. And in a way, they had a a very eerie, darkness to them. That's, in the room, you're like, oh, whoa, this kind of, it's like Black Sabbath. Did they say that they started wearing crosses because their own music scared them? It was so heavy, I think.
Right, yeah.
So it's kind of one of those. And so I've been here before, 40 years ago, starting a band and, carving our path. So to be here now, doing this again, with new friends, new songs and new sounds. I like the extreme, and it doesn't always have to be extremely heavy. I just like when things are out of left field and out of the norm. I think that's something that I'm kind of gotten known for now.
I got to tell you, man, I didn't know you could do lead vocals. And when I heard Walk With Me Forever, I was like, wow, man, that is phenomenal. And why is this just coming about now? Something you've been hiding for 40 years or what's that about?
Well, it's funny. My first band I was in at age 12 was a 3-piece, and I was one of the lead singers. And now here I am at 58 in a 3-piece, and I'm one of the lead singers. So it's funny how this has all kind of come full circle here. But, I look at it like this. I write all the time, and I'm always writing vocal melodies, and I'm always writing things. Even the Ellefson solo record that we put out last October, I wrote a lot of melodies and stuff and sent them to Jeff. And then, of course, he takes it from there and makes it real because he's Jeff. He's that voice. So that music wouldn't be right for me to sing because there's better. In fact, that's why I called Jeff. There's got to be somebody better than me to sing this stuff. And sure enough, Jeff's the guy because he's Jeff Scott Soto, Yeah. But in this world with Dieth, creating a new sound, really, kind of creating our own little genre here. Because there's some death metal, sure. Is there some thrash metal, sure. Is there all these elements, sure. But, we chose to expand our palette and broaden the horizons and not just be a one-dimensional, one-trick pony. And I think that really opened up the opportunities for us to try a lot of different stuff. Free Us All has, kind of a swing drum groove with a walking bass line, a la, 1930s smoky jazz,
right.
And at the end, there's like some Allman Brothers dual guitar, harmony guitars, so you're kind of going, my gosh, what the hell, where did we come from? Like, even as we're doing this, we're going, this is so cool. Like, would you have ever thought that, a guy from Megadeth and Entombed and Decapitated would be writing this music? And then, of course, this ballad. I think, look, the sound of the song with the sound of my voice, with the sort of sentiments of the lyric and kind of just my emotional delivery of it it just all lined up, and it seemed very natural. I mean, when I just kind of first sang a quick little scratch of it in the studio, Mihal and Galer, they were like, oh my God, you're singing the song. You're the one. And, in my mind, I'm thinking, okay, who can I call to do this for real? Like, should we call Alyssa from Arch Enemy? Should we call,
right?
I don't know, Jeff Scott Soto? I mean, who do we call? Like, come on, let's get real. And then, as I really, they really encouraged me, and because again, they're listening through, none of us, we all hear our sound in our head, right? Even as you and me are talking, we hear how we sound in our own brain with our skull vibrating and everything, right?
Yeah. And
then you hear ourselves obviously on recordings, the radio and stuff, and you go, "Whoa, that's me. I didn't think I sounded like that." They heard something in me that I didn't hear, and I think the process with singing is always to allow, especially in the studio. I like to be produced. I don't go in going, all right, I'm going to do it all my way. I like when someone. I like to be coached,
Right.
I think the best athletes are the ones who are able to take direction and be coached. And I think the best artists are those who are able to get out of their own way and collaborate with a producer and take some direction as well. So I give all the credit to Guilherme, Mihal, and our producer, Christian Cole, for getting that vocal to sit just right.
Well, it comes off as a very almost like melancholic sort of a song. It's a very, and like you said, like it's a ballad, but there is a darkness there to it. What can you tell me about how that song came about?
So Guilherme, we're in the studio in Germany at the Keller Studios, and we've got about half the record is done. We recorded most of the parts, and then we've got the other half now that we're finishing up. And those are things like Heavy as the Crown, Mark of Cain, Free Us All, and then Walk With Me Forever, right? So kind of some diverse tracks. And so, Guilherme says, hey, what do you think about doing a ballad? And I could tell he was a little tentative and a little nervous about even bringing it up, right? Like how heavy are we, right? Are we ballsy enough to go near the B word, ballad, right?
Right.
And I said, hey, why not, man? Bring it in. I'm lucky with my history. I've been part of records that we've really stretched the envelope, and we've taken chances on things. So for me, I'm like, hey, this is our debut record. We can make this record whatever we want,
Right.
And so I love that we took the chance to do some things and expand it, because now albums 2, 3, 4, whatever follows from here, the stage is already set for our audience to kind of expect the unexpected. And and so when he brought it in, I think kind of initially it had a somber tone about his friend Lars from Entombed, who had passed from cancer, and just kind of this heaviness of grief of not being able to be there to say goodbye, and just all that emotion holds, and maybe regrets and things like that. So that sort of was where it started. And then as we sang the lyric, to me, I felt more of a romantic notion about it. And sort of and that's why I actually drafted the treatment for the video, where the guy gets in the car and he turns around and looks through the back window, and there's this movie playing of his life.
Yeah.
Because during the course of the journey of the video, he dies, and that's why at the end the woman is in such sadness because her lover has died, and the chorus is really, it's two parts. If I stay here, will you walk with me forever? It's basically the woman talking to the deceased, right?
Right.
If I wander all alone, I'm still with you. And then the second half of the chorus is the man on the other side in eternity calling back to his loved ones on earth, saying, hey, if I stay here forever, right, in the eternity, and will you walk with me forever? And then I'm never going to be alone, because, you're always with me. Because inevitably we're going to join the deceased in eternity. That's kind of, I guess, the, sort of the resolve of the lyric, right? Is this answer call of us speaking to the eternity, and the other half of it is eternity calling to us living, saying, hey, once you join me down here, it's all good, right? Then we'll finally be together, right?
Right.
The real sadness is being left alone on earth. That's the sadness, because there's even a scripture, 2 Corinthians 5, where it talks about how we groan in this body, in our earthly temple, our body, being sort of disconnected from our heavenly Father. And, so I kind of went there a little bit with it, a little maybe, theological, esoteric, and that to me is kind of what gave it it made it a little less morbid. It made it kind of have this sort of, gentle, peaceful, eternal thing. Like when you go to a funeral, they say, David Ellefson entered into eternal rest on whatever day, I die. Right. So it's like, oh, it's eternal rest. It's not like he's dead, he's gone, this is horrible. It's like, no, he's just chilling in eternal rest now, So I kind of like that thought of it as I was singing it, and then as we were putting the video together too, I liked sort of this using it as a sort of a man and woman dynamic between the two of them.
I do see some shows for Dieth coming up in Europe. Is there anything going to be happening in North America with Dieth? And is that a song that you will tackle live as well? I don't think anyone's ever really seen you do a live vocal.
Yeah, no, I know, right? It's, I got a little, when I went out and was doing some solo stuff with my Ellefson band, I was kind of doing the Chuck Berry thing, right? I was going down to South America, and I was using the pickup band every day, and, they learned my sets, and I was singing some stuff, and some of this was some stuff I demoed back in the 90s, some stuff that I did with my band F5.
Oh, I know,
tracks that I liked. Yeah, so I was singing a little bit live, but yeah, now that this is a recorded version and taking it to the stage for real, this is like turning a pretty huge corner, and this first summer here in Europe is about us really just propping this thing up and getting it out there and giving it a good look. And then, look, I think this song has connected well now to the American audiences with this record. In a more mainstream way, which I think is really cool. So I don't know if we'll get here to America this year or if it'll be in early 2024, but it's definitely on the calendar for us to get over here and start working.
I think you're one of the busiest guys in, I'm not just going to say just metal, but music right now, man. I mean, you got the Lucid, you got Kings of Thrash with Jeff going on. You got your hands really, really full. What's going on with the Lucid and Kings of Thrash right now, by the way?
Well, idle hands are the devil's workshop, right? So I may as well keep my hands busy. As long as I keep them on a bass or a mic stand, I guess I'm good, right?
Right.
Look, it's funny. The Lucid, obviously we're going to do some shows last year, and our guitar player Drew had his cancer scare, and he's through it. He's fine.
Good stuff. Good. Glad to hear that.
He's one of the lucky ones. Yeah, but he's already working on another movie that he's talking to me about being a part of, and so the Lucid is kind of like this really famous internet band, and I say that only because our opportunity to play the show was sort of pulled back last year, but we're still looking for a moment to try to make it happen. And then as far as Kings of Thrash, we're going down to Australia here in July to go play the Killing Is My Business and So Far So Good So What albums down there.
Yeah.
For those fans. And June is all Dieth, little Kings of Thrash in July, and then back at it in August and September with more Dieth stuff here then till the end of the year.
And just, talking about Kings of Thrash for a second there, I'm reuniting with Jeff, and I do want to talk about the Nick Menza documentary in a second, but getting into Kings of Thrash though, and you get Chris Poland up there too. It must be so satisfying for you to get up there and to play those songs again and just to be able to play them live. That must be such a cool thing with those guys.
It really is. And, Jeff has really stepped up to be an incredible sort of musical director with it. He helped put the band together with Chaz and Fred. He rehearses incessantly with those guys, so everything is always tuned up and ready to go. And they have a great time, playing that stuff. And of course, this whole thing started. Jeff and I wrote some songs together last year after I had brought him in to, I can't say I did. Nick's manager brought him in to be part of the documentary with Nick. And so, it's funny that through this Nick Menza movie, Nick's no longer here with us on planet Earth, but his eternal spirit is still bringing us all together. So many of us reconnected through this documentary. Friends, crew guys, musicians like me and Jeff, and all of us getting just reconnected again, just to tell stories about our fun with Nick and our journey with Nick while he was alive with us here. And that opened this door for me and Jeff to write some new material that we're working on. And then that led to us forming Kings of Thrash, so we could go out and do our throwback to our mutual Megadeth legacy together. And, and all this stuff is done with the celebratory glasses in the air, big cheers, attitude with it, and I think that's what makes it fun. There's never a bitter spirit about it. It's always meant with love and passion and fun and bringing people together, and I guess that's kind of always been my role in all this stuff. Is I'm sort of the guy who, can help bring people together and maybe even heal some old wounds. And, bands are weird, when you've been in them. Sometimes you leave a band and you don't talk to anybody from that band ever again. It's the weirdest thing, but I guess I'm kind of this guy that I'm the monkey in the middle, and I kind of, sort of just, I don't know, it just seems to be my destiny and path in this world, that I'm the guy that sort of always keeps in touch with everybody and find these opportunities land in my lap to call each other up and bring everybody back together again. And certainly this Menza documentary has kind of been a centerpiece of that.
Yeah, well, This Was My Life, the story of Nick Menza. I mean, it's supposed to be released later this year. Is there an actual release date for it yet?
We don't have it here. So here's the kind of the story works here. So editing it now, I just finished the narration a couple weeks ago. So they're laying all that into the edits. And again, this has kind of been a self-funded and spec deal kind of thing. So we're sort of doing it all out of our own pocket and our own time. And then Holly, the director, will take it around to the film festivals, which is a lot of fun. Having just done it with Dweller's movie, it's a fun process to take it around to the festivals. Of course, you're always looking for distribution deals there. It's part of it has a trade show aspect about it, to find the right, distribution. And then, so I'm thinking it's a 2024 release is if I had to put a date on it, it's sometime next year.
Obviously, with your involvement in this, there must have been a closeness with you and Nick. That Rust in Peace era of Megadeth, was that like a tight-knit group, you guys? It
really was. I mean, look, sobriety was mandated. And our manager, Ron Lafitte, he studied under Tim Collins, who was managing Aerosmith at the time, and he really mentored under him. Like, okay, I just started managing Megadeth. I got to get these guys cleaned up. What do I do? And Tim, again, the Aerosmith, that road of their sobriety, and look at the success they had. As same with Motley Crue. Yeah. So Ron, he just told us one day, he goes, guys, if you get clean, it's all yours to have. If you don't, the door is going to close quickly. So we got it together, cleaned our act up, got Marty and Nick in the band, and we became a new band. It wasn't like we were just sort of filling the holes and filling the roles. We were, with new characters, we were really rebuilding and restarting the band. We looked the same, we dressed the same, we thought very much the same, yet we still had our own. It was that moment where, it's kind of like Kiss. They were all in the same band, but they each had an identity. And of course, that was the Beatles. That's every great rock group, where you feel like they're a team, yet you probably have your favorite one, right. And that's the beauty of a group, so it really was that. And we worked relentlessly hard, devoted every waking hour and minute of our days to the group. And certainly it paid off then, and it's paid off now, to have the residual royalties and the celebration and celebrity that came with that is pretty cool.
Speaking of Marty, did you happen to catch Marty's onstage reunion with Megadeth in Japan?
I did. I saw the clips because that was what was put out there. And it's funny. I know Marty. We talk on email a couple times a year, and he's like, Marty's just one of the loveliest people ever. He's a sweet guy. My mom always loved Marty. And his mom and dad, his mom would always bring us cookies on the bus. So it's like Marty and I kind of came from the same cloth, right? We were raised in very heartfelt, humbled families. And Marty and I were small town guys. So, we also liked a lot of the same music, Kiss and Mahogany Rush and Angel and Stars and, all these kind of bands. So he and I, we shared a lot of similarities. And, that's why I knew when he was really aching to go elsewhere musically with his journey, he needed to leave Megadeth. And when he left, bless him, be a friend to him and allow him to leave, allow him to move on. And, we don't always have to hate each other on the way out the door. What I mean? It's like, let him go, and, so, to watch him come back and play with, look, we were supposed to play Budokan in 1993, and, there was a health issue. Let me call it a relapse. I mean, look, rock and roll's a tough game. I'm not even putting any blame on anybody. I'm not faulting rock and roll. We've got our, we have our occupational hazards, right? And that, so, we were pulled off the road, and Budokan went away. And I think for Marty, that was a huge disappointment for him. And I think maybe it was kind of the very beginning of an end for Marty with Megadeth, even though it took, several years later for him to finally depart the group. I think, for him, we had an interview one time after we did an interview together. And after the interview was done, the guy goes to us, he says, Marty, think like a Japanese man. And that was a really, a great compliment to Marty. He didn't just learn the language and eat some sushi and call himself Japanese. Right. He really just fundamentally understood and understands, Japanese life. And so when Budokan went away, it really took the wind out of his sails. And although the band was still super popular over there over the years, to see Marty be back on stage at Budokan brought me great joy because it was so important to him, Yeah. And so I think that's that tickled me. Look, Marty can play that stuff in his sleep, man. He's great. He can do Tornado of Souls on demand anytime he wants because he wrote the solo. That's him, And look, he brought it with great power and gusto and energy, and I think he was genuinely excited, to do it as best I could tell, So, but I think the bigger thing for me, just knowing the journey of that to see Marty on stage in Budokan as a resident of Japan. That was a crowning moment for him, and it looked like he enjoyed it. So for that, I'm super thrilled for him.
That's cool, man. And I guess my last question for you, David, is there's been fallouts with you and Dave in the past, but I mean, if that door was to open, would you ever consider returning to the fold in Megadeth? Because as far as I'm concerned, you are a member of Megadeth. You will always be Megadeth's bass player to me, at least as a fan. But is it something that you'd consider?
Well, look, I'm not the one who closed the door.
I know.
What I mean? I know. So it's, Dave's always going to be my brother, man. And it's funny when I think about Dave, I'm just walking around the house. I'll think about some moment in our friendship and our history together. And they're usually fond memories, and look, brothers fight, brothers hug and make up, and you know what I mean? And that's the journey, Yeah. And so, as a musical gig, it's like, oh, well, set that off. That's off the palette now. So I've moved on with other things that you can see I really enjoy. So whatever, but yeah, look, I've talked to other friends of mine about this who have had bands, and either they're in and out of bands or members have come and gone and whatever. And especially when you're a principal key member and a founding member and all these different things, it's a different, you have a different kinship to your fans. And,
yes.
I think, when I always say this, when you make a record, you're making it for you. But when you put that record out, that record is for your audience. And, at that point, it now becomes bigger than you. It becomes bigger than the 4 or 5 or 3 of you, whatever are in the band. It's bigger than you now. And those songs are going to outlive us. And, everything about that legacy and the stories we just talked about here are now they're in infamy. They're going to last forever. And so, for me, it's you're part of a family, and you're part of of that. And look, should there ever be a family reunion? Hey, of course, I'll always take the call, but with that said, I'm not sitting around waiting for a Megadeth reunion. Let's just put it that way. So I want to be very clear that, obviously I'm very forward focused right now, and I'm very laser focused on what's ahead. And I'm super happy with Dieth, and I'm so proud of the record. And I got a really fun moment this last week singing Walk With Me Forever. That was a fun moment to that song goes out, and hey, if you don't like my bass tone, I can always try a new bass. If you don't like my voice, I'm sorry, I don't have another one. This is all I got, So yeah, I think, it is just my voice. It's me and Mihal and Guilherme. It's us. We come as a team, and to be in new friends, new songs, new endeavors, and new opportunities. That's where my heart and my focus lies now.
David, thank you so much, man. I can't wait to see you back over here, with Dieth in the North America, man, and with the Lucid, even with Kings of Thrash, dude. I'm just huge fan, and this has been amazing, dude. Thank you so much, David.
You're welcome, Scott. Have a great day, brother.
There he is, David Ellefson, man, and the name of the band is Dieth. Check it out, man. It is something awesome. It is something extreme. It's something heavy. And the new album is out now. It's called To Hell and Back. And definitely check out the tune Walk With Me Forever. Ellefson doing a great job at attempting to lead vocals, man. A phenomenal gig. I mean, where's his voice been? You know what I mean? I've always known him as being that bass player with Megadeth. But the guy can sing, it turns out. As always, don't forget, check out loadedradio.com on a daily basis for all your hard rock and metal news, constantly updated there for you 24/7. As well, the live 24/7 radio station is there for you as well, just a click away. And download the Loaded Radio app completely free, where you can get all that information right to your device, past episodes of this podcast, and of course, the 24-hour stream. Join me next week. We'll be talking to Des Fafara from Devil Driver and Cold Chamber. Des is always a great guy to talk to, so I look forward to that. And I look forward to talking to you again, okay? So we'll talk to you again right here next week in an all-new edition of the Loaded Radio podcast.
Loaded Radio.